I, state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. One of the most solemn promises an American can make is the oath of enlistment, a vow to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Many in uniform have taken this oath, but let's not forget, it is not exclusive to just our military. Across the country, countless Americans, public servants, first responders, elected officials, and citizens, like the very ones in this room today, have taken a similar oath. And though there may be a final day of actual service that they're providing in person, the spirit of the oath never expires. It represents a lifelong commitment to service, sacrifice, and standing up for something greater than ourselves. On this 4th of July, let us honor not only our founding fathers, but every American, past and present, who has chosen a life of purpose and service for the betterment of others. May we all strive to live in a way that preserves the freedoms we celebrate today. Good afternoon, Rotary. My name is Joshua Chitwood, and like Bitch said, I am new to Rockwall and I'm new to Texas. About a year ago today, I was up in the Granite State of New Hampshire, and new retirement was was right around the corner. And I was looking for a place to raise a family that was safe, with no crime, and had a good education system for our 5-year-old son. And I luckily found upon a place called Rockwall, Texas, who met all that. And there were many, many people here cut from the same cloth in the values and really the act of service that drawed me here. From organizations and leaders like TVP with the Norwood family, to Band of Brothers with Bob Amick, to Marine Corps League led by Quint Avenatti, and Casa Lone Star board by Sandra and led by Lauren Rowe. It's just a true testament of the type of people in Rockwall and the surrounding communities that laid the foundation to give back to communities and to continue to serve. I was asked by Mitch to come today and give a speech about Independence Day and July 4th. So I thought I'd break it up into 3 parts because I'm a Marine and that's about as high as I can count. Those 3 parts are going to be a quick overview of what I believe Independence Day is and the history of how it started. And then I'm going to transition into some interesting facts, pop quiz, that I'm sure everybody in this room is going to be able to answer those questions. And then I'm going to walk us through a journey of how we got here, but more importantly, how do we sustain it for the future moving forward. All right, so independence. 4th of July. So for those that many of us know, back in the late 1700s, mid to late 1700s, into the early 1800s, there were these things called the 13 American colonies, or 13 original colonies. They were, I would say, not bounded by, but they were kind of under the rule of the British Parliament and the British government, and they were treated unfairly with acts and taxes, mainly in the states up north, like Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Well, the colonists kind of got tired of it. They were tired of paying all the extra taxes, being treated unfairly, but they decided to come together with 56 delegates to go to a place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania called Carpenter Hall, and they established the First Continental Congress. During that First Continental Congress, they basically came up with a letter that they were going to write the British Parliament that stated, hey, we're no longer going to abide by your rules, we're no longer going to pay your taxes, and we're going to stand up militias in our local colonies to fight against your forces. Well, the British didn't really care for that, and they didn't like that, so they started what's called quartering. So they started putting British Parliament troops in the homes of the colonists in order to deter them. But let me back up for a second, because I think this is important to note as well. Out of the 13 colonies, only 12 representations went up to Pennsylvania. Georgia did not go. Why didn't Georgia go? Well, Georgia didn't go because they were becoming extremely wealthy off of the British Parliament and the trades, and they didn't want to ruin that or put a bad name out there. They were also experiencing some wars and some conflicts with the American Indians to their south. And if they were to establish a war or engage in a war against them, they wanted the backing of the British Parliament. So here we are now, brought back. The British people said, nope, we're going to fight. I'm sorry, the colonists said, we're going to rebel against this. We're not going to allow this type of rule anymore. We want our independence. And a guy by the name of Thomas Paine created a document called Common Sense. This document basically rallied up the colonists and said, you will fight back. We want our independence. And from that document, they stood together and they united. From there, they stood up what was called the Second Continental Congress, which everyone's probably more familiar with. And they picked a man at the age of 33 named Thomas Jefferson. Because of his innate ability to write, they said, hey, we want you to draft a Declaration of Independence. So he knew he needed to cancel out the noise. He rented a room in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and in 2 short weeks, this 33-year-old man did the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, which on July 4, 1776, we all know we got our independence. 11 years from that date. It wasn't enough just to be free. They realized, okay, now we're free, but now what? Well, we still need to have rules. We still need to have a governing body. So 11 years later, in 1987, we had the Constitution of the United States was born. And there were still some tweaks that needed to be made from that. So 4 years later, we had the Bill of Rights, which are our 10 amendments that we're all pretty familiar with today. So that, when I think of independence and how it all started and the history of it, that's kind of what goes on in my brain. But now let's get to the pop quiz, the fun part. So does anybody know how many people signed the Declaration of Independence? That's a great answer. There were 56 delegates. So 56 delegates signed the Declaration of Independence. The ages were 26 all the way up to 70. So there were 2 26-year-olds who signed it from South Carolina, and then a 70-year-old from Pennsylvania that I'm sure many of us know. Okay. The U.S. population. Does anybody know what the U.S. population was back in 1776, or the estimated?
3 million.
Close. 2.5 million estimated. Currently, in the United States today, we have 330 million people, and the average population of Houston today is roughly 2.4 million people. So the size of Houston was the size of the United States, the 13 colonies. All right, here's my favorite. Do we know what 2 presidents signed the Declaration of Independence?
Adams and Jefferson.
Adams and Jefferson. Sergeant of Arms, he does not get a fine. All right, so Thomas Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. What's cool about that is Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died on the same day. Does anybody know what day that was?
July 4th. July 4th.
July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of this nation's independence. So I find that pretty remarkable. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get on with my speech now. Rotary Club, thank you for having me here today. It is my pleasure to spend time with you all the day before the birthday of the greatest nation on earth, these United States of America. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here and for continuing to show up for your communities, for your families, and for this great republic we call home. On July 4th, 1776, a collection of farmers, lawyers, merchants, patriots, did something truly revolutionary. They declared to the world that freedom, true freedom, is not granted by kings and parliaments. It is not gifted down by government. No freedom is a God-given right, and it belongs to every man and woman willing to stand for it. In that moment, the United States of America was born, not in comfort, but in conviction. The words they penned, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, were not just ideals. They were a pledge sealed in blood, courage, and divine providence. And so from that very moment until today, Americans have fought generation after generation to protect and preserve those ideals. A road from 1776 to 2025 hasn't been easy. Freedom has been tested. Liberty has been threatened. But each time, we the people have risen. Each time, Americans have stood up. Not because we had to, but because we choose to. Let's look back at the price that has been paid for our freedom. In the early years of our republic, it was Bunker Hill, Trenton, Saratoga, and Yorktown. George Washington and the Continental Army, tired, outgunned, and outnumbered, fought not for land or riches, but for the outright ability to be free. They believed that liberty was worth dying for, and because of them, the United States became a shining light of governance in a world ruled by monarchs. In 1812, when our sovereignty was threatened again, we didn't shrink back. Our soldiers stood tall in places like Fort McHenry, where bombs bursting in air gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. That flag, ladies and gentlemen, has never stopped flying. I want to tell you a real interesting fact about the Star Spangled Banner. So as we all know, Francis Scott Key was the one who originally wrote the Star Spangled Banner. Initially, the Star Spangled Banner was written in 4 verses, which it still is today, and it was called Defense of Fort McHenry. What's really cool about this is Francis Scott Key was actually a lawyer who got sent out to a ship to negotiate getting hostages back. And while on that ship with the British, he overheard about an attack that was going to take place in Baltimore at Fort McHenry. Because he overheard that, they decided to keep him on ship until the attack was completed. Well, what you hear in the Star Spangled Banner, it isn't a song, and it is a poem that he wrote on a postcard while standing there. But what it was a real life reflection of what he was seeing. When the first shot took place, he thought there was no way that they were going to be able to withstand the attack, that the British was going to take control and win that. And through the bombs bursting in air and everything in that song is what he saw. And what gave him proof was the American flag flying once all the dust settled in there. So I thought it's really cool if you go and read the history of how he wrote this down on a postcard while basically a prisoner on a ship trying to free hostages. I find that pretty remarkable. When we were tested from within during a great tragedy of the Civil War, Americans gave their lives to preserve the Union and expand freedom to those who have been unjustly denied. At Gettysburg, Antietam, and Shiloh, liberty was once again paid for in blood. President Lincoln said it best, "This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom." In the 20th century, as tyranny swept across Europe and the Pacific, Americans answered the call again. We landed in Normandy and scaled the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc and liberated camps where the innocent had suffered beyond words. In the Pacific, we raised our flags on Iwo Jima and endured the brutal battles of Okinawa and Guadalcanal. We fought not for conquest, but for the principle that every man and woman and child deserves to live free from oppression. We fought to defend liberty, not just at home, but abroad. And we built our enemies into allies because of who we are. In Korea, we stood firm against the communist aggression. In Vietnam, we fought for freedom of people, many who we would never meet today. In both cases, our soldiers fought with honor, even when the wars were unpopular back home. To our veterans of those wars, we have not forgot about you. You served your country with courage and principle, and we thank you. And then came the day that changed our generation forever, or at least mine. September 11, 2001. I think we can all remember where we were, what we were doing, how we felt, and the family impacted by those tragic events. That morning, America woke up in terror. Terrorists filled with hatred for our way of life attacked us on our own soil. They took down our towers, struck our Pentagon, and tried to break our spirit. But again, they failed. Because in the face of tragedy, America comes together. Flags flew over every porch. Churches were filled with prayer. Firefighters and police officers ran toward the danger, not away from it. Strangers became brothers and sisters, united by not race, not politics, not income, but by something deeper, for the love of the country. In the weeks and months that followed, America reminded the world who we are. We do not cower, we do not retreat, and we do not forget. Our troops deployed to foreign battles, not for conquest, but to make sure that evil would never find a safe harbor again. In places like Fallujah, Baghdad, Helmand Province, and Kandahar, brave Americans fought with valor, carrying with them the values of the Constitution, even in the most hostile places on earth. Many never came home. Others came home forever changed. And it is our duty as Americans, not just on the 4th of July, but every single day, to remember the sacrifice and honor their service. So how do we preserve and maintain our independence moving forward? I'm going to tell you. We must believe in strong borders and strong national defense. We must believe in limited government because history teaches us that power concentrated in the hands of a few leads to tyranny. We must believe in the Constitution, not as a living document that can be changed at will, but as a sacred blueprint of a free society. We must believe in the Second Amendment because the right to defend yourself is fundamental. And we must believe in personal responsibility because free people must be moral and self-governing people. City leaders, public servants, amazing members of society in this room today, you are on the front lines of our freedoms. You make decisions that touch people's lives every day. You ensure public safety. You grow local economies. You protect the quality of life for your neighbors. And you do it all in the spirit of service. Our country does not survive on federal power. It survives because of the men and women in this very room, just like this very room, in towns just like ours, who live out American values. Let me be clear, America is not perfect. No nation is. But we must be the most exceptional nation on this earth and in history. Not because we're flawless, but because we never stop striving for a more perfect union. We always face hardship, but each time we've overcome it with faith, grit, and unity. We are a nation that runs toward danger, a nation that still believes in right and wrong, a nation that honors our flag, not as a symbol of division, but as a banner of hope for everyone. So this Independence Day, I ask you, let's not take for granted the freedoms we enjoy. Let's teach our children why it matters, where it comes from, and how quickly it can disappear if we stop defending it. Let us say clearly and without apology that we are proud to be Americans. Say that again. We are proud to be Americans. We are grateful for our troops, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, our public servants, and our citizens like you who still believe in this great experiment called liberty. Let us say loudly and clearly that we are one nation, most importantly under God, and that as long as we remember that, no enemy will ever defeat us. May God bless you. May God bless our service members and family. May God bless our community. And may God bless the United States of America. Happy Independence Day.